to be talking to Professor Sipho Seep. Now, before we get him on a line, let me just give you a bit of background. Way back in the dark days of apartheid, Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, reportedly vowed to take the implementation of separate development so far that no future government will ever be able to reverse it. Verwoerd's policies consigned Black people to the periphery of the economy. Robbed of their land, Black people were placed in congested concentration camps of poverty. They lived in order to work and not vice versa. And I'm wondering how much of that has changed 27 years into our democracy. Is it just a cosmetic change? Why have we not seen more radical transformation? What is holding us back? What needs to be done collectively as a people of this country to make that change? Professor Siepe also wrote a paper on this very issue, and let's try and unpack it. This was written a little while ago, and I just wonder how confident he feels about change going forward, or is he disillusioned? Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
A very deep, well, when I read the paper, it really forced me to think deeply about our situation in South Africa. Where are we now? And when you wrote this paper, obviously it was with much sadness, I should imagine, thinking that, this is a beautiful country, lots of opportunities to fix all of the brokenness, politically, financially, and otherwise. And yet it seems as we haven't made much progress, or have we?
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. We have not made progress, but that is not a reason to be despondent. What is important from the perspective of scholarship and of experience and wisdom that comes with hindsight is to say, where did we go wrong? And the first thing that we needed, which I point out, is that systems have their internal logic, and apartheid had its own internal logic. And that internal logic was the emasculation of Black people culturally, economically, and politically. And the economic emasculation started with land dispossession. But most importantly, it was to place Black people in the peril of the economy. So that to be Black would mean to be poor and to be unemployed, where Black people would only serve as a reservoir for labor, where their labor would be required, and then when they are no longer required, they can be dispersed either to their homelands, which were nothing else but concentration camps of poverty, and also the townships. So that was very clear to the ANC, that was very clear to the apartheid planners and designers. So when the breakthrough of 1994 came, there was expectations by all of us that we will address this legacy of apartheid. And the ANC was very clear as well that their struggle, as well as other liberation movements, that their struggle is not only about political liberation, it was also about economic liberation and cultural liberation. So 1994 breakthrough was a compromise, and this is what we fail to understand. Apartheid was not defeated. There was a compromise, and when there's a compromise leads to a coexistence of the apartheid design and the ascendancy of Black people into political office. And it's very important to understand the distinction between political office and economic liberation. But the ANC always understood that the Once they are in power, they will have to address all other issues. But the way they fail to do is to deal with the internal logic of the system. So if you have a bus that travels at a particular speed and it's designed to travel at that speed, it doesn't matter who becomes the next driver. The bus will be constrained by the design to travel at that particular speed. So what you would expect is that the person who gets into the bus either changes the engine in terms of the design, but also the direction. But what we had is post-1994, we spent time celebrating what we call a miracle nation, a rainbow nation, and all that. And I quoted Johnny Steinbeck, who is a white columnist, who actually put it bluntly to say, actually, yes, what happened in 1994 was what you call the opening and giving black people the right to vote. But every system remained intact. And we did not do that. We spent more time looking back and celebrating rather than to do what was supposed to be done, to say, if you understand that this is the logic of the system, you won't get into that system and continue on that system. And that is the first thing that we did. We miscalculated and misread what happened in 1994.
Okay.
Secondly,
carry on.
Secondly, we did not have ideas of how to change the system. We had spent more time resisting the system than learning what is it that we needed to do once we took over. So despite the fact that the ANC said it was ready to govern, it was not ready to govern, because government is not only about putting systems, it's about questioning the logic of that system and making sure that you come up with a system that will be more empowering. And the third thing that I want to mention is that systems of oppression all over the world involves enlisting the former oppressed into the logic of the system. It's about continuation. So some members of the ANC were immediately dispersed into government. Some were dispersed into companies that are owned by white people. And when they were put in those companies, they were put in again to stabilize. It was more about giving an impression that things were okay. And what you do with people who have always been hungry, you make them instant millionaires, and then they forget about the original intent of dealing with that which they want. Companies don't bring you into the board of companies. If it's a company that exploits people, as it happens not only in this country but anywhere, companies are there to make business and profit. And if the making of profit involves exploitation, when they invite a person to sit on the board, not because of their skills, but because of their politics, they're not inviting those people to stop the exploitation. They're inviting those people to give a sense that something is happening. And this is what happened. So you had the former oppressed now enlisted in companies that continue to do what they have always done best, make profit on the back of exploitation of other people. This is how you end up with Marikana. Even when you have within the non the company that they led Marikana, people who were unionists, who understood the plight of workers, but when they were there, they were more concerned about the plight of bosses.
They were lining their own pockets, were they not?
So but then
yes.
Most people don't think that. We should also understand that that is human nature.
Absolutely.
So we must also remove this notion that there's something special about black people. That could have happened to any other people, because, as I say, it's not a phenomenon that you find only in South Africa. You do find it anywhere where there's always the exploited and the exploiter.
Absolutely.
The exploited will always be brought in.
Yeah, you I think it's
Yeah.
happening all around the world. I mean, just recently
So
we
it's not a black and white issue.
absolutely.
So we need to understand. But what we did, we overstated the humanity of black people. As things are not as ordinary as other people that we can all be bought, or they can be bought, or some of them can be bought.
Unfortunately, it seems that everybody has a price, so we can be bought. And you can, you see this phenomena anywhere in the world. But let's look at the issue around the ANC. We do know the biggest issue as far as the people of South Africa is concerned is land restitution. There's a huge issue around unemployment and the education issue. I think once we get those three issues, if we can address those sensibly, equitably, perhaps we won't see the type of insurrections we've seen recently. However, it also points a finger at the ANC government. It points a finger at the inefficiencies, the factions within the government, and the fact that everybody is trying to appease everybody else within the ANC. And that is leading to the downfall of the country, the people of the country. They are not serving the people of the country.
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to address the issue of the land because that's a historical grievance, that's a historical injustice. And for as long as we don't, the problem becomes a leader. Then the problem becomes that which defines the discourse. So we need to sit down and have a discussion around the issue of historical injustice. We need to address the issue of education. But what we have done, when the ACC is involved and no country was closed.
Okay, Professor, I'm losing you there. Do you just want to talk into the phone or move around or something?
Yeah, what I'm saying.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. When the ANC fails, it responds by moving in, by giving people handouts. You have the social grants. But no country has ever prospered on the basis of handouts. Now you have the children given which they must, but you now have even a proposal to think that the young people should also be given some financial assistance. When we have so much in this country to do, where we can use young people to build houses. I mean, there are a number of proposals on how to bring the young people back and skill them. We closed technical schools where young people could be self-employed as bricklayers, as motor mechanics, as electricians. Those happened, but what we did, we decided to get ideas from somewhere, ideas that failed elsewhere, because we were unsure. So we pretended that we are becoming part of the global village, when in fact we could not do the basics. But instead of addressing that issue, again, we want to go for easy solutions. So what young people want are not enough. They want jobs, they want training. And what we need to do is to make sure that the schools function. The schools are not functioning. I mean, my school where I did my primary and high school, if you go to those schools in Soweto, kids go in there anytime they want. We had an element of discipline. So one of the things that was taken out of the system was an issue of discipline. One of the things that was taken out of this, that we took out, was the rewarding people based on hard work. So people see people just becoming instant millionaires without having put an idea on the table, without having worked for it. So we need to go back to the basics. No, we are not going to achieve anything without hard work. We see young people, even at university, destroying property. But we must ask ourselves, what have we done to have young people not appreciate that this is an investment, these institutions are investment for the future? And we're not talking about that.
Okay, Professor, we've run out of time. Very quickly, what do you believe is the solution? Question number one. And question number two, how has the ANC failed the country? What do they need to put right?
First, we must dispense with the idea that there's a free lunch. Once people are made instant millionaires, and you know those people are not the leaders to emulate, that there is a problem. Two, we must also understand that the systems have internal logic. And a system and tools that were meant to oppress people are not going to change because there's a new person who's holding a spanner. So we need to address the core of apartheid and say how do we about it, and that's us going to the drawing board. Three, we must also affirm the humanity of people. We must stop thinking black people are angels. They are not. We are not angels. And we can easily fall and be derailed. And as we would say, freedom and democracy, the price of those is eternal vigilance. And that's what we need.
Wonderful talking to you. I'd like to have you back on air in the near future to talk about what is the meaning of freedom, what is the meaning of democracy, and is there a place for minority groups in South Africa? But let's leave that hopefully for next week or the week after. Wonderful talking to you.
Thank you very much.
That was Professor Sipho Seep. He is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the Institutional Support at the University of Zululand, 8:35 exactly.
What makes Randwick Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift?